Hello everybody, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Mythos Vanesia, the Living Lore Q&A. This is the stream where we talk about my fantastic, long-standing homebrew D&D world of Vanis. A world 6 years in the making now, and still continuing. Still holes left to be filled, and that's what the stream is all about. By asking me questions about my world, anything that I don't have the answers to, I have the opportunity to create. It helps inspire my creative process. As always, I'd like to start the stream by thanking Ian Fisher from Tabletop RPG Music, who was kind enough to provide the license to his music free to use in my streams and videos. Thank you very much. If you want to check them out, they're at patreon.com/tabletop-rpg-music, and they're on YouTube under the same name. Their music is free to use for anybody running D&D games from home, even streaming, so long as you're not monetizing the content. If you are going to monetize, you do need to seek a license from them first. But anyway, let's launch into today's stream. Good to have everybody who's with us right now. Today's prompt for the Living Lore Q&A stream is festivals and holidays in Vanis. So as always, the prompts serve just as a starting point. I will take any questions that you have regarding my world or characters within the world and happily answer those. The prompt just kind of serves as a starting point for questions or for when I don't have questions to answer. So, before I start launching into descriptions, does anybody have any questions about Vanis to start out? It can be simple, broad, on topic, off topic, whatever you'd like to ask. You're welcome to ask. Also, I don't know if you can hear the rain, but it just started pouring outside as I started the stream. Well then. I see no questions yet, but there's plenty of time. Please feel free to interrupt with your questions. Your questions take priority. I will always answer viewer questions before finishing whatever topic I'm on. So don't feel shy. But let's talk about some of the festivals that I've already written, some of the festivals that exist in this world. Let's start with one of my... well, that one's a little bit obscure. Let's talk about one of the ones that I have a bit of detail on. So, I don't know if anybody's here from r/world building. I made a post over there to hopefully bring people in to come watch the stream. But I talked briefly about this festival on there. It is a festival devoted to the goddess Alunair, goddess of the moon. And the goddess Alunair, for those who aren't aware... Here we go. So the goddess Solaria is the goddess of the moon. She is widely worshipped by the moon elves, both for the obvious reason and for the fact that in their history they say that they were uplifted by the goddess in the time when the elves fell from immortality. She is the sole source of light and nights, Noct being the god of night, and an evil deity. She stands as a beacon in dark times, and her few clerics and paladins fight against the evil beings of night, calling upon her light to break through the darkness. Ever does Noct seek to corrupt her, and long has he lusted for her, wanting only to corrupt her light and to keep her forevermore. Her domains are that of light, protection, and most importantly, revelation. Revelation is the big important one here, because it is the center point of the Noctifalia, and of the culture of the Moon Elves. The culture of the Moon Elves highly prizes secrets, not for their value as secrets, not for keeping these secrets, but because their goddess is all in air, they see the act of revelation of these secrets as holy. It is an intimate act. To reveal a secret to someone is to show trust in them, to show faith. And so it is with the Noctifalia. Twice a year on Vanis, Vanis experiences lunar eclipses, where Alunair's light is hidden in its entirety. On these days, within Lavalon, a holiday is held called the Noctifalia. In the day leading up to it, people will prepare their homes, putting chalk upon the doorway in ancient moon runes to invite the goddess within. They'll prepare chambers for family returning home or for strangers visiting from other clans to offer hospitality, and it is extremely important that hospitality is shown, even to strangers. Although, of course, in Lavalon, strangers are very often just people from other clans, people that you know that you can trust anyway. Throughout the evening, they will gather together to help any families complete tasks that have been put off or give aid to those of the community who need it. The Noctifalia, as the holiday is called, will consist of the entire clan coming together, feasting in reflective silence during the night, meditating as the moon crosses the sky and begins to fall dark. In the darkness, they join hands with friends and watch, chanting silently for the power of Alunair to return swiftly, and as the moon becomes fully hidden, each person is expected to divulge a secret to friends and family, however small, and seek closure or forgiveness for the past which is freely given. Whatever it is that they ask forgiveness for must be absolved. This revelation of secrets is said to give power to the goddess, keeping her light of revelation alive even in the dark. The way that the Moon Elves see it is when Alunair's light is hidden, they become her power, her light in the world. So there we have one of the more demure festivals of the world. But we have others. Quite often, festivals are, of course, devoted to particular gods or goddesses. That's just how it happens, holidays and the like. So let's talk about the festivals that are devoted to the mother and father of the pantheon. That's Surgaya and Vanis, the Lady of Fate and the Lord of Vanishing. And we'll start with the Lord of Darkness and Vanishing, Vanis. Vanis has a holiday known as Asblik. It is held in the depths of winter, and during the day of celebration, fires are lit throughout the streets, burning brightly and filling the typically dark depths of Duskmorrow, the holy city of Vanis, with light. It is worshipped elsewhere, but of course the largest festival is in Duskmorrow, and given the schism between the sects of the Mother and the Father on separate sides of the world, and the excision of their churches from most lands because of their war, it is most commonly celebrated on Duskmorrow. So during Asblik, clerics and paladins will march through the streets unarmored and unclothed, painted in white markings and holy symbols, and citizens are encouraged to challenge them in feats of strength, stripping and burning their clothes as part of the challenge, providing the spectacle of their challenge in the streets. The stripping away of the clothes represents the stripping away of fears and of unnecessary aspects of your life. The markings, the white markings, are in tribute to the god Vanis, who is depicted as a black dragon with purple in his wings, but white markings crossing his entire body. In addition to these spectacles, individuals will take the day of the festival to burn away bad habits and aspects of their lives that may harm them. They will make a promise to themselves or declare out loud the thing they wish to remove from their lives, and then leap over one of the raging fires that are lit in the streets. If they clear the flames without being singed, their devotion is proven and their success is empowered. Often, groups of hunters or warriors will gather on this day and go out on a massive hunt, either for beasts to cook and eat, or for a dangerous creature to slay, bringing back their prize before nightfall. At nightfall, the fires and all lights in the city are extinguished, and the streets go quiet, letting the city bask in silence and darkness. The ashes of the flames are scattered throughout the streets, and people will take them and anoint their bodies, or spread them across their homes and businesses as a blessing. This blessing is said to destroy any dangers that would come upon them. In some of the less religious regions, this day will be marked by a large village hunt or by writing the name of someone or something that the person believes deserves judgment and burning it to ash to draw the gaze of Vanis upon them. You may notice, paying attention to some of the festivals here, some commonalities between these festivals and real festivals. I take inspiration from real life. For example, with Asbleak, the leaping over the flames, there is there are many festivals and holidays throughout the world that do fire jumping as kind of a spectacle and a show of devotion. There is a pagan festival, for one. I can't remember which on the Wheel of the Year it is. Perhaps it's Beltane. Where lovers will join hands and leap over a bonfire, and if you manage to hold hands and clear the flames together without breaking your contact with your lover, then it's said that your union will last. Next, the festival devoted to the goddess. This one needs a little bit of expansion, so feel free to ask questions about it, more pointed and direct questions. Maybe then I can get some inspiration for more details. But we have Tisagane. Also known as the Weaving, Tisagane is a festival devoted to the goddess Sergaia, the Lady of Fate. It is known across the world and celebrated to some extent in many places, but for the most part, the real festivals are found in the Terrador Peninsula, which is home to the holy city of Aramea, the holy city of Sergaia, and the Order of Fate. Tisagane is marked in Aramea by a massive 2-day festival where beautiful silks and textiles, threads and banners are woven all throughout the buildings and streets of the capital. Parades with effigies of the goddess march throughout the street, flowers are thrown about, and people come far and wide to watch the spectacle. Chanteurs, which are a holy sect of the church, and other diviners come in scores to read the fortunes and weaves of attendees, and even in places that don't practice the full festival, often this holiday will be used to practice a deep divination of some form, to look into the future and see what lies ahead. Typical ways to celebrate include having your fortunes read, giving gifts of new clothes and woven textiles, or small rituals that involve the forgiveness of old grudges or amending of friendships. The idea being weaving back together broken threads. So that's 3 so far. I have more, but do we have any questions so far? I do love to hear your questions. Also, don't forget about your channel points. There's one in there that makes me change my voice if you want me to hear, if you want to hear me try and read these in a bad Scottish accent. Until I have a question, I guess I will move on. Continuing on the path of holidays that worship the gods, we'll talk about the Rising. So, the Rising is devoted to the god Ardent, Lord of Growth and Civilization. It's celebrated worldwide, and it has many forms, but all of them include communities coming together in some way. It's about society, about community, and about growth. In larger cities, people will gather for parties in the streets, and often stages will be set out in city squares where inventors and builders will show off new innovations and display the fruits of their progress. Vendors will set up on every corner to provide food and wares at discounts. In plenty of smaller communities within cities or small towns and villages, people will gather to pitch in for community projects together. Sometimes auctions and charity raffles will be held to pool gold towards funding projects or helping the poor. In places like Albion, the Golden City, which is additionally the holy city of Ardent, the first bastion of civilization, the devout will anoint their buildings with oil that contains flecks of gold, painting the symbols of Ardent to lend strength and longevity to their constructions. This is in part because Albion holds in high regard its architecture. It produces some of the best architects in the world. It is constantly building bigger and bigger and bigger and better and better. And so architecture has a very, very deep and almost ritual importance to the people of the Golden City. Some architects will spend the day in fevered meditation over their designs, calling upon Ardent to grant them inspiration on this holy day. The day, however, is not just devoted to the growth of civilization. Plenty of carnivals and fairs will pop up in cities for a few days before and after the Rising, for the children to enjoy and enrich themselves with, and plenty of small rituals in many communities follow or precede this day that are meant to celebrate and bless the potential of their children. So, basically, it is in part the growth of civilization, but of course, in part the growth of the people that make up the society as well. Educators may come out from various trades to help spread interest in their fields and answer questions for the youth. And fun fact, one of the players in my campaign, Nathrisa, is she is an Aasimar of the Lord Ardent, her mother being an angel of the Lord Ardent. Her birthday is the Rising, which is not an accident. And neither was she. I'll move on to another. We have a very important festival, Solaria, the Festival of the Sun. Deep in the summer, the Solaria Festival is held across the world, a 2-day celebration of the warmth and light of the sons of Vanis. It is the holy festival of both Zur and Ember, the twin gods of the suns, god and goddess respectively. The first day focusing mostly on the Lord, and the latter day on the Lady. For the first day of the festival, dances are held in the street, and the people spend the day in joyous celebration, often with quite a bit of ale shared and plenty of drinking contests. Games are common, and the prosperous and wealthy of the community are often encouraged to, and often will, provide entertainment for the town or city out of their own pockets, and games with prizes that they have procured. Couples come out to dance, party, and leap over fires placed in the streets hand in hand, strengthening their bond and ensuring the longevity of their relationship, much like the real festival that I mentioned before. It is common for individuals to propose during Solaria, and friends will often make pacts and bonds, drawing from the unshakable bond of Ember and Zur to strengthen their own promises and relationships. Sometimes, fun pageants will be held, with couples dressing up or down, depending on where you're from, and being judged by the crowd. The winners are often crowned Lord and Lady of the festival. The second day of the festival is a bit more solemn than the first, but not necessarily somber. Fires are lit in sconces across the city, and come night, people will dance around the flames, inviting the protection of Ember in their lives. Some of the eldest couples of the community will come out to watch the dances and take the final dance of the night. Then will grant their blessing one by one to younger couples, waving a piece of the flame around them to anoint them with Ember's light and protect them. Some warriors and hunters will take embers of the dying fire and carefully put a burn upon their bodies, a mark of the fire to invite Ember and Zulr's protection on the field of battle. And I'm just going to try and pull up something for you guys. I have a calendar for my world. Uh-oh. No, YouTube, stop that. Go away. I don't want you to play. Go away. Sorry. Alright, hold on. Which one was it? No, not that one. This one? Yes. It is currently the 32nd day of Sodom. Alright. Just for funsies. I'm going to share my screen with you. Since we're talking about festivals, let's also mention the Calendar of Venice, because I don't think I've actually talked about this before. Let me just swap. Away. Why are you capturing that screen? Why would you do this? Okay. Sorry about my technical ineptitude. There we go. So, here we have the Calendar of Venice. The Venetian calendar has 16 months within it, and their calendar is lunar, which means that each month is a perfect 32 days, the amount of time that it takes for Alunair to circle Venice. This is because I wanted things to be simple. And one of my... Okay, yeah, so funny story about the calendar, the reason I decided to do it this way. I know that it is not realistic for the moon to make 16 perfect revolutions, go through 16 perfect cycles, not revolutions, it makes a revolution every day, whatever, 16 perfect cycles in a year. Our moon doesn't do that, most moons don't do that, that's not how it works. But you know what, my world is magic, so fuck all the haters. She's a goddess, she can do what she wants. The real reason I did this is because, so when I started my home game for a while, which is on hiatus right now, I'm only doing my online game. When I started my home game, one of my players, one of my roommates, constantly teased me by asking, what phase is the moon? And I was like, I don't fucking know. I can't keep track of that. I don't know what phase it is. I don't even know what phase it is outside right now. So I eventually broke down and was like, all right, you know what? Fine. 16 months in a year, 32 days in each month. The moon makes a perfect cycle through all of its phases in a month. New moon is on the 32nd, and that way I could easily say, okay, it's the 12th, then it's this phase. Full moon is always on the 16th, new moon always on the 32nd, for the record. I may eventually go back and change this to something a little bit more realistic, a little bit more offset, but I believe the months, the length of time will be the same. Anyway, yeah, so 16 months. Well, 16 months, you say, Shasha, Rex, whatever name I'm going by today. So that means that there's 4 months in each season. Well, no, because I don't like things to be simple. Let's talk about the different seasons. This is way back when I was taking paper notes, so you'll excuse me. Ha. So summer is 5 months long, so is winter. Summer includes the first 5 months of the year, Thrust, Lithon, Verdrest, Tethys, and Aldemon. Those all constitute summer. And yes, the calendar does begin in summer. Then it moves on to spring. Now, spring has 3 months. Spring and fall both go by much more swiftly. Ardashad, Sadwin, and Dulamon. Currently in my game, it is the 32nd of Sadwin. The final day of fall. That's what it is. I said spring, didn't I? This is fall. My bad. Then we have winter. Winter is comprised of 5 months. We have Gaishan, Gwynashad, Shinzrest, Bina, and Theris. After the long winter, you get a nice short little spring with Loch, Ostra, and Leithren. And then it's back around to Threst for summer. You'll notice I do have this calendar marked up. This calendar isn't the final one. I started building it in here, and then I moved it over to World Anvil when I started my World Anvil. So, my holidays are a little bit scattered between different mediums. You'll notice a few in here that I didn't mention, like the Storm Festival. The Storm Festival is not defined yet, but it is the festival in devotion to the Storm God. Mostly it's celebrated in Keen Ra, because the God of Storms and natural disasters is not necessarily worshipped so much as given supplication to avoid his wrath. But his worship is popular in Keen Ra. We have the market days down here, which is one of the festivals that I made that is not devoted to any god. And the market days, let's see if I have the description here. Yes, though not officially recognized as the Festival of Autumn, plenty of merchants will provide a small ritual to the goddess of gold and greed on these days. The market days closely follow the rising and are less of a festival and more of a sale of sorts. During these 3 days, most industry tradesmen shut their doors and give their workers a holiday, but vendors are busier than ever. Regulations within cities are relaxed, and sometimes taxes are reduced or lifted for the duration, and many traveling traders and stalls are allowed to set up in many of the streets of large cities. Most of these retailers offer discounts or special deals in these days, and small guilds or groups of vendors may gather around common areas in the street and hire entertainment to encourage people to come by. So, the market is not like a massive holiday. It's a business holiday, really. What else do we have on here? Here's Asbleak, We have Noctivalia and the lunar eclipses. Gwynashad, 16th of Gwynashad. Embersvale. This one I haven't finished either. Embersvale is the final day of fall, leading into winter. And Embersvale is a solemn holiday marking the beginning of winter. It is commonly celebrated by gathering with family and friends, eating and reminiscing. It is a time of reflection on the past and the self, and of remembering the lost. In many regions, a gift exchange is common, usually presenting the received party with something they need or lack, rather than something frivolous. I'm still considering how I wish to expand this one. I was thinking of making it something along the lines of Samhain, the old pagan festival of the dead, which has turned into Halloween, where essentially it is a celebration of the dead as well, kind of a reflection on the people that you've lost, the people that you miss, and a celebration of their lives. But I'm not sure yet if I want those to be one and the same. There is going to be a Festival of the Dead, but I'm not certain if I'm going to combine it with Embersvale. The reason why it seems sensible, the reason why Samhain is it is the last pagan Sabbath in fall before the winter, is because it is the time of dying, where the world dies. The last festival has, the last harvest has been completed. The crops die, the trees die, everything becomes cold. And so it is that cycle into the time of death that makes it a holy time for the dead and worship of those that you've lost. Hey, Slav! How you doing? Good to see you. I don't know how long you've been here, Slav, or how much you've heard. I've been talking over some of the festivals in my world. Some sausages? I want some sausages. Hey, Slav, give me your sausage. It's funny because of innuendo. Anyway. Yeah, you would perk up at that, wouldn't you? Anyway. Do I have any questions so far? I've been through a lot of festivals. I haven't seen really any questions yet. Eventually I'm going to run out of festivals to talk about. This is one of the reasons I wanted to do this topic today is because in my game yesterday, we just had, and I'll get to talking about it eventually, the Festival of Rapi, which is a festival that is celebrated in some of the Jaina tribes. Really fascinating festival. I based it in part off of the Indian festival Diwali, Festival of Light. And it was just, the entire session was centered around Rapi, right up to that big reveal at the end. So, I thought maybe it was time to start fleshing out some of my other festivals, because my players really liked it. But festivals have been the thing that I've struggled with the most, to be honest. Like, I just don't have the right questions being asked for me. The only reason I have any at all is because I talked to my best friend, and he, asked me a few questions like, well, where's the Harvest Festival? Which is why I have the Harvest Peak. Maven. Which may or may not be based off of Mabon, the pagan festival. I can't help it, I'm a witch. I have to put in references. The Harvest Peak is celebrated in many ways across the world, but most commonly, whole communities will come together at the evening for a communal feast, dance, and celebration. It is very common to include representations of the Lord of Bounty, Dulci, also the Lord of Lust, so you can imagine the sorts of things that happen. And often contests will be held for townspeople to make the most vibrant and beautiful effigy out of flowers and plants. In most places, the celebration... Ooh. Festivals that are outlawed. Good question. Let me look at what I have, and then I can answer that question. So here's my list so far, along with some ideas. It was illegal to have festivals to worship Bacchus. Oh, well, that sucks. He's the most fun. He's the god of wine. Well, I can't go along the same lines with, you know, because we already have worship for Dulci. Here, hold on. There's Floor. Where's Dulci? Here he is. God of indulgence, bounty, harvest, lust. Definitely. Oh, he also demanded sacrifices. Yeah, okay, that makes sense then. Dulci is patron to the works of the earth, presides over the bounties from which mankind takes, whether in field, forest, or mine. So his worship can't really be outlawed, even though he's the god of indulgence and lust, which can often be taken poorly, because he's also the god of the harvest. I think if any festivals were to be outlawed, it would be a festival... Oh, actually... There are two festivals which are outlawed in certain places on the continent of Albion. Tisagane and Asbleak cannot be observed. This is for very good reason. So, Tisagane is, of course, in devotion to the goddess Sergaia, Lady of Fate. Thereby, that means that... it is the festival that is celebrated by the Order of Fate, the Church of Oramea. Asbleak, devoted to the god Vanis, Lord of Darkness and Vanishing. The Cathedral of Mists celebrates this one in Duskmorrow. Now, back in the day, so for the past 10 years, Duskmorrow and Oramea have been at a tense peace that Albion... has kind of, the Council of Albion has constructed, but for most of their history, back all the way to the year 0, possibly beyond, we don't know, most of the records are lost. Well, I mean, I can tell you. Actually, I can probably tell you, because I don't have any players on, and the players already know anyway. I'll get to that in a second. So, the two churches... used to be one, the Grand Venetian Church, but a schism formed with each of them blaming each other, the worshippers, the devotees of Sergaia blaming the devotees of Vanis, and vice versa, for their role in the Sundering, the calamity that changed the world, that set the calendar to 0. Eventually, this broke out into war, which ravaged the capital of Albion, the Golden City. And finally, it was quelled, and both of the churches that had split, the Cathedral of Mists and the Order of Fate, were excised from Albion. However, since the Order of Fate went north to the Terrador Peninsula, and the Cathedral of Mists went south to Catermorn and founded Duskmorrow, in order to continue their war, which has occurred for most of history, they had to meet in the middle, right back on the continent of Albion. So eventually, at some point, although direct worship of Sergaia and Vanis is not strictly outlawed, it is looked down upon, and the festivals are absolutely outlawed, because such an open display of faith in one god or the other can lead to conflict. Very deep conflict. So yes, those are both outlawed on Albion. But let's talk about something that I haven't talked about, because I've talked about both of those festivals. Let's talk about some lesser gods. Verdant and Shean. Verdant is the god of spring, the god of rebirth, and Shean is a goddess of death, the goddess of winter. There is a festival for the beginning of spring. This occurs all over the world, and in most places, worship of Verdant is forgotten. Both Verdant and Shean are such minor gods that in most places they're not really known about. Well, in most circles, rather. A lot of higher-ups know about them, especially in regards to the places where worship of Shean is forbidden. Now, you can see here, each fall she descends from the glacial north and wages war upon Verdant. Come winter, she slays him and takes up the crown, plunging the world into cold. In this week, there is a festival of Mourning. Now, the festival of Mourning is still held in many places. It can take many forms. Some people just observe Embersvale. Some smaller communities will observe something that's more akin to a festival of mourning around this time. There was a festival at one point, now outlawed into such obscurity that most people don't know that it ever existed, that offered sacrifice to Shean. Supplication to her in order to diminish the harshness of her winter. Her frosts that spread across the world, they take of the life of everything, of trees, of plants, and of animals. And so by offering sacrifice to her, people thought that her hunger for the world would be sated. Of course, this eventually got out of hand, and rather than just sacrifices of food and animals, it eventually turned to sacrifices of people in some places, and thus these festivals were banned. So there you go. There's some made-up lore on the spot for you. Thanks for that bit of inspiration. I'll be writing that down later. Yes, you are. You're very inspiring, Slav. Thank you. That probably sounded sarcastic, but I was being serious. What else have we got? So talk through Noctvalia, Tisagane as Bleak, The Rising. We have mentioned the market days. We've talked about Solaria. Somebody's doing food in the background. I don't know what they're making. I just had Taco Bell because I hate myself. And because I didn't have time to make anything. Taco Bell is my guilty pleasure. I hate it. I love it. It hates me and it loves me. Back to lore. Yes. Oh yeah, I don't know if I mentioned. So in Solaria, I did mention that there's the gods of the suns, Zur and Ember. For those of you that aren't aware, I'm sure that I've mentioned this before. Vanis is a binary system. You have the big golden sun, the small red sun, orange sun. The reason why Embersvale is called Embersvale, and part of the reason why the summer lasts so long and the winter lasts so long, is because of Ember. Now, I'm sure that somewhere, some astronomer would pull out their fucking hair at what I'm about to say. I know that the world doesn't work this way. Shut up, this is D&D, it's magic. The reason why Embersvale is called Embersvale, the beginning of winter, and the reason why it lasts so long is because Embersvale is the time when Ember, the orange sun, passes behind Zur. out of sight. She is more distant, and her warmth is lost to the world. So rather than 2 suns, you will only see 1. She moves in the same direction, but faster, as Vanis does. And so 5 months pass with her mostly hidden until she emerges again for spring, which lasts 3 months, and as she comes closer to Vanis, you get summer. More warmth being cast down upon the world. If any astronomer wants to correct me, you can just send me an email, I'll ignore it. Because I don't want to deal with doing that amount of research on celestial bodies. Anyway. Can anybody tell me how a binary system is actually supposed to work? Just curious now, just curious. Because I think I've seen models where, like, planets weave a figure 8 in between the dual suns. Is that more realistic? I'm just curious at this point, you know? Anyway. Well, I'll just go make friends with an astronomer then and figure it out. You know, and then not write it into my lore because I've already established too much. Probably. I don't know. Some I say it doesn't bother me, but like sometimes some things bother me. I'm like, I want things to work properly. I want things to make enough sense that somebody takes a look at it and their immersion isn't broken. You know, I like that about my world. I like the depth of the lore. That's why I write so much. Anyway, role-playing has a brother, roleplay games has a brother who's a physicist, but they're busy. Yeah, I'm sure that they are. Physicists have got a lot to do. Hi, Psycho! Good to see you. Thanks for peeking in. But also, physicist is different than, like, astronomer. Well, it's good to see you, Psycho. Do we have any questions yet? If not, I'll move on to Rapi, which is a smaller festival. Oh, that's fine. Literally, the point of the stream, interrupt my story time. Like, interrupting my story time only produces more story time. It's the questions help me flesh out my world. There's still so many holes left in my plot. Like, look at this. Look at this whole fucking world that I've got here. Oh, hold on. I don't know why the transition doesn't work properly just for this scene. It's the same for all of them. Anyway, look at this world. Look at that. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 continents, okay? Plus the Isles of Rem up here. There's... You think I've written all that? Fuck no. And there's the frozen north, which isn't on the map. And there's shit outside the walls of the world. God only knows. You wanna know a secret? Yeah, it is. It really is. Okay. Here's a secret. You see this continent over here? Tetra? So, Tetra, I've described it in, like, to my players and stuff as this mystery place, shrouded in mist, you know? Nobody that comes back. Airships and ships can't travel there. It's known as Yogd. Every vehicle that travels there crashes, and they're never seen again. The reason why it's so mysterious. I haven't written any of it yet. I don't know what the fuck goes on there. I'll have to eventually, because fucking... one of my players, Aylin, she's a moon elf, and so she's obsessed with secrets. Anything that is secret, she wants to know. She's already discovered so many goddamn secrets. Oh, she's the reason I've had to write so many, like, little pieces of lore. I'm like, fuck, I have to keep feeding her. It's great, though. Like, the, here's another fun story, about how my world works. Let me pull this up. So there was a segment that I did. Yeah, I mean, she does, for sure. She keeps me on my toes. She's the reason why the Moon Elves have such a deep lore. Like, when we were making his character, the player's he, as we were making his character, they wanted to be a Moon Elf, and they asked so many questions about Lavalon that it just spurred more and more and more lore about the Moon Elves, and eventually they turned into this very Galadriel-esque people. For those of you who are into Lord of the Rings, let me find it. The Grand Gala. But I do this to myself, really. Like, all the times where I'm like, oh fuck, now I have to fill in a hole. I do it to myself. Especially, so when the players went to Shinokal, the this big elven city of light, they eventually got themselves into a gala. They got invited to a gala, and I wanted it to be, the high elves in my world are very, very colonial European, you know, lots of elevation and mystique and grandeur to the nobility. A lot of emphasis put on that, so I wanted to make the gala feel the same. So I was like, what would the high elves, like, little game, what would, by their code, what would be important? Titles. Everybody needs titles when they're being introduced. Everybody at this party needs to be something. Everybody at this party needs to be from somewhere. So I just sat down and I typed out, we had, well, more than 21 guests, but families were introduced together. 21 different, like, people, essentially, and their titles. And for most of them, I just fucking made up titles. I'm like, this sounds cool, and I threw it in there. But of course, because Aylin was present, she had to start asking questions. So let's see here we go. We have Nicomedes Vajraturia of Albion, leader of the Iron Wheel Workshop, strider of the sunlit skies, renowned inventor of modern magitech, and our guest of honor this evening, Rex Undia Vejdraivan of the Balanced Scale, founder of the Valkyrian Guard, protector of the Weirding Way, bearer of the Antlered Crown, and Justicar of the Salakan tribes. So many questions were asked about that. Azure Vajraivan of the Golden Cards, High Commander of the Valkyrian Guard, Seer of the Seven Paths, Reader of the Brightened Stars. Right? These are just the Jaina, like the Jaina were introduced first. Gristvash Sivushde, Sujviche, I butchered that name, of the Valkyrian Guard, Breaker of the Gordian Chain, Bulwark of the Frozen Reach, Shield of the Valkyries. That one took some goddamn work. They were like, what's the Gordian Chain? And I'm like, there was a creature that was bound and he freed it. I was like, I don't fucking know. Gordian Chain sounded cool. It gets worse. Okay, so here's the important. I'll go back to some of the others because I want you to hear these. But the one that they fucking focused on, I made the mistake of. So when I introduced each of the players, they needed their titles as well. The family that was doing this gala did their research. What creature was released? That's an excellent question. So I'm thinking of some kind of giant, or a dragon, honestly. So a Gordian Chain. Let me look up what this actually means, because I looked it up before. It comes from the term Gordian knot. So the Gordian Knot is a legend of Phrygian Gordium, associated with Alexander the Great. It is used as a metaphor for an intractable problem solved easily by finding an approach to the problem that renders the perceived constraints of the problem moot. So basically, you have to find like a way to disprove that the constraints actually exist. Yeah. But I've heard the term Gordian Chain before. Oh, that's because it's from Final Fantasy XIV. Nice. A bold solution to a complicated problem. Right, anyway. So the Gordian Chain was, in my world, supposed to be unbreakable. It was an unbreakable binding placed upon this creature. So then I've got to think about why the fuck was this creature bound? Well, dragons are holy creatures, but they can also be quite evil. So the killing of one could be seen as like a sin, a scar upon your soul. Also, yes, Final Fantasy XIV is amazing. Slev, I'm playing through the whole thing from the start again. And I'm streaming it. You should watch. I finally got to dungeons. I think I'm going to stream more tonight after I've done my segment here. And I finally got to the first dungeon, Sestasha. Or if you find it boring, you can just wait and tune in once I get to Heaven's Word. Because we all know that's where the story really gets good. So yeah, I'm thinking a dragon was probably some horrible fucking dragon, was bound rather than being killed for a crime, because the killing of that creature would have been like a sin. And Grist was the one that freed it. Gotta see more dancing men on the staircase. Hell yeah. No Saj, that man, a treasure. Yeah, so I think that sounds good. We'll say a dragon then. He freed a dragon. I think that's a good fill in the blank there. I never actually told my players what creature it was, so. All right, but let's go back to this. So what I was going to get to was I gave the players titles too, because the High Elves are all about pomp and circumstance. They need to have titles. Now, one of the players, Nathrisa Sorol, is from the prestigious Sorol family. The Sorol family is, as she recently discovered, but her father already knew, one of the 5 founding families of the Arthurian Empire, known as the 5 Pillars. I've talked about them before. I'm not going to go into detail. So, of course, her being there alone, like, her name alone is pomp and circumstance. All anybody would have to say is Nathrisa Sorol, and people would be a Sorol. But they need their titles too. So in turn, I gave them titles. We had Apusand Vashtomayhur of Salika, learned scholar of the ancient and modern Jaina histories, delver of deep secrets, wizard of the 4th Order. He's the wizard of the group, a Loxodon from the Jaina tribes. You'll notice the naming scheme in the Jaina is always Vaj, Vasht, or Vejt. Wizard of the 4th Order just means he can cast 4th level spells at that point. Then we had the Moon Elf, the Honorable Lady Aelin Miranin of Clan Manador, honored guest from our far brothers and sisters of the moonlit realm of Lavalon. That caused a stir. The High Elves hate the Moon Elves. Here, at the request of Lord Minister Zerstor and Ryvon. That was very important, because Lord Minister Ryvon is a member of Parliament, and if they hadn't stuck him in there, and a proof of an invitation from someone of importance, she would have been laughed out of the place. We had the Honorable Ambassador Cadre Darrow of Mardiurenia. He's the bard rogue of the group. He was in Otherian under the guise of being an ambassador. So, of course, he was introduced as such, because that's what the Sun Elves had put him up as. He's really a spy. Honored member of the College of Daruenia, Hall of the Five Spires, master chef and provider of the evening's feast. That's how they got into the gala. He cooked the meal. Heir to the East Tyrellian merchant fleet, which is true. His father is that. Now, here's where I caused problems for myself. We wrote Nathrisa's father. Nathrisa and I wrote him together as, like, so she is an Aasimar. Mother was an Angel of Ardent. Father was a High Elf. She didn't know this until about a year ago, on her birthday, when her sorcerer's powers, Divine Soul Sorcerer, she'd been failing all of her studies in wizardry and magic, which are very important for High Elves, because magic is big in the society. She was very distraught. At her last birthday, her powers suddenly manifested explosively. Some guests were hurt. The dining hall was burned. Her father had kept her inside the manor, locked inside the manor for all of her life, had kept her a secret from the wider world. A lot of people didn't know that he had a daughter or an heir at all. And she didn't know that her mother was an angel. She didn't know that she was a sorceress. All of this eventually came out through questions. Why the fuck do I have these powers? Why can I glow gold sometimes? And why do I seem to mature more rapidly than my friends? And eventually he told her. She was pissed. And she stuck around for a couple months, getting tutelage from one of his friends, the Oracle of Conjuration, Firian Drentor. But eventually got pissed off because, like, he started, she started finally dragging out of him all the secrets. Like, she never knew her mother. She thought that her mother was dead. And it went to a boiling point until she ran away, got kidnapped. That's where the players found her, rescued her. They ended up here. So I decided on my behalf, because she gave me all these lovely knives to use, that he would have more secrets. I decided he would be a hero, and she never knew. So I wrote this. Lady Nathrisa Siral of Tweenarock, sorceress of the Inner Light, daughter of Lord Elias Siral, who is known as the wielder of the Twilight Sword and seeker of the Starlight Path. When I wrote those, I had neither of those defined. And fucking of course, they latched the hell onto it. And I swear to God, every time they have downtime now, they are researching the Starlight Path. I wanted to throw it on there as like, oh, he was a hero who did things. Like, he was a person that people know, and you didn't know that. But no, now she has to go and do her fucking research, and I have to write it. But it's fine, because the Starlight Path has turned into a very fascinating topic. It is probably one of the most mysterious and esoteric things that I've written, and I actually know for once where I'm headed with that thread, after sessions and sessions of just like feeding them scraps and not really knowing what I was doing. It came together into a full concept, but I am so enjoying how shut up, Slev, stop guessing things. I'm still just feeding them scraps because, like, part of the fun that they're having with it is that they only ever find scraps. They roll high and they find something, or they find several somethings, but none of it makes sense. It's all poems and esoterica, and it's great. But yeah, so the biggest thing that they found about the Starlight Path is that there appear to be doorways of some sort. But ooh, I can read a couple things about the Starlight Path to you. Let me read some of the poetry that I've written for it. I really need to get all this put into one place. because right now it's just penned in my chat to Aylin's player. Lauren, Goddess of the Moon. No, okay, it must have been back with the Twilight Sword pen. Here we go. I had to write the Twilight Sword too. Which, funnily enough, is where I started the, like, the idea of the touchstones, the magic items, the, oh, what are they called? You know what Matt Mercer does for his magic items. The artifacts that he has, they're called something. Vestiges of Divergence. They're like the vestiges of my world. Here we go. Here's a few little poems that she's discovered about the Starlight Path. To turn the key, one must first step towards the veil. To walk the mists and not be lost, one must watch the stars and follow the light, so that all corners of the world may be as near as a stone skipped upon a pond. For any that can navigate its maze, a place with 1,000 secrets, each with 1,000 more. That was the first bit of lore that they found about it. The first hint of writing about the Starlight Path. That was someone's description of it. Here's another poem, an actual poem. Oh, those traitor stars, tempting, twinkling, delightful, all too happy to lead you astray just as easily as they would show you your door. How cruel, how cunning, how fitting, that to find the mysteries one must know them, but to know them, one must find them. And then there's a path within the mist where all the stars have gathered to watch. There is a sea beyond the mist, starless and vast. There are stories within the sea, one for every star in the sky. And then I love the little quote that I fed her, which has been coming up repeatedly in her studies. It's just, to seek is to find. The last one that I've given to her so far is, there's a door of stone upon a mountain closed and cold. There is a door within an ocean beyond a place where light can reach. There is a door within a garden that only a dozen have walked before. There is a door upon the sky that only the widest wings have ever reached. There is a door within a wood, hidden, where you cannot see. The doors are locked. The key is lost. Find ye the frayed edge of the world. Take the key, turn the lock, walk. Fucking love those. Best part about those, I wrote all of them on the spot as she was researching. I didn't have any of them prepared in advance. And somehow they all worked together so beautifully. Much suspense indeed. Alright. I've been going down ADHD tangents. We started on festivals and now we've ended up on the Starlight Path. That's fine. I just love talking about my world. Honest. Do we have any questions? All paths lead to the Starlight? Well, not quite. They have found some more solid information on it. They do know that, for one, it was... So the Starlight Path is known in name only among certain circles in the High Elves, mostly nobility. In ancient times, it was the pride of all elves, they say, not just high elves. I can tell you the speculation that Aelin has come up with. She thinks that because her people, the Moon Elves, guard tears in the Vale, their Lavalon is riddled with these tears in the Vale between worlds, paths, holes that lead to other planes. They guard them so that people cannot pass them, because passage through them can cause the tears to widen or cause other things to be allowed through. She believes that one of the clans guards a door to the Starlight Path. She believes that one of the Moon Elf clans holds a key. I won't say whether she's right in case she watches this video. Each clan has something. Yeah, the clans of Lavalon are each gathered around one of these gateways. Her clan, Clan Manador, is gathered around the tear into the Astral Sea, which is incidentally why she is a monk of the Astral Self. But there are other clans. Not what I meant to do. Let me pull up. I need to consolidate my lore on Lavalon, but let me see if I already did. Nope. Okay, so I did I do know, so the capital, I do know what what gateways the capital of Lavalon guards. But trying to see where I made my note on, there was another clan that she asked about. Stories, no. Investigations of Miriam, no, I think I'm going back too far. Ringo, no. Armory, no. Book, no. Tiltian floor, no. No. Spells, period, no. Shit. Well, I put it somewhere. I have the name somewhere for the clan that guards the pathway into the ethereal plane. The capital, I can tell you which pathways it guards. It is actually centered around 2 pathways, and that would be the paths leading to the Feywild and the Shadowfell. The capital being Ethildar. Here we go. Maps. Get out of there. Here we are. Crowning jewel of the Moon Elven clans, Ethildar is hidden away within the canopy upon the southern peninsula of Lavalon, guarding the largest and most important gateways upon the whole continent, those leading to the Feywild and Shadowfell. Of course, the Feywild is the most important gateway, because the Feywild is where the elves originally come from. Before they were elves, they were the Eladrin, and they were originally from the Feywild. And the Shadowfell, technically. But They consider the guarding of the Feywild Gate to be of great importance, because here, I'll tell you a little secret. Because I can't remember if my players have already found this out, but if not, they're going to soon anyway. Which is the reason why the High Elves hate the Moon Elves so much. And it is for this exact reason. In the time before magic was magic, the planes existed just as a part of reality. There was no separation in between worlds. You could walk to the planes from the surface of Vanis. Interplanar travel was just another fact of life. It was like living as a fourth dimensional being. You know, you can walk in 4 dimensions. You can go forward, backwards, right, left, up, down, or planar. It was just a fact. So the elves came to Vanis, the Eladrin came to Vanis from the Feywild. Everything changed after the First Dragon's Blood War. After the First Dragon's Blood War, the Muses and Alunair wove the veil, separating the planes from Vanis for its protection, because otherwise demons, devils, all these other entities could walk freely onto Vanis and wreak havoc. And they wanted to protect the world, their creation, their home. Unfortunately, a side effect of the veil was that it cut magic from the world. It cut access to the planes in its entirety. This had a profound effect on the Eladrin, whose very essences were tied to the Feywild. With the lack of magic, with the lack of that aether flowing into the world, with that connection severed for all but the some particularly strong Fey, we won't talk about that. The elves were diminished. They became mortal. Their lifespans were reduced to that of men. Not even the 750 years that you know now. They went from being theoretically immortal to die only by being killed to living less than 100 years. It was... Their society collapsed within years. The different sects of elves, which had once been whole, all the Eladrin had been together, moved apart and found different ways to cope. The High Elves remained in Salika, in their capital, Silmarinan, which was made when they were Eladrin, while as the ancestors of the Moon Elves, which were, I believe, I haven't fully defined it, but I believe that I intended them to be the Autumn Court. There we go. Eladrin of the Autumn Court went to Lavalon. Anyway, long story short, eventually magic was brought back into Vanis. Razesh gave the sacrifice of her eyes in order to bring magic back. However, this didn't reconnect the elves. The elves found other ways. The Moon Elves devoted themselves to Alunair, who restored, in part, their lengthy life. This is why they devote themselves to her. And in turn, she tasked them with the protection of the veil. Passage in and out of the veil had already caused these tears, and Lavalon was the center of them, and so they were tasked with guarding Lavalon. The High Elves, the Elder Fae, the Archfae, who had led them into this world, gave himself in devotion, in service to Adwen, the goddess of magic. He laid down his crown, and he went to her and begged for their lives to be restored. And in turn, he would become her eternal apprentice. With the gifts that he was granted when she acquiesced, he came back and he bound magic into the very roots of Silmarillion itself and restored the lengthy lives of the High Elves. This is at least their legend. However, the High Elves have forever been salty at the Moon Elves because, as the Moon Elves were tasked with guarding these gateways into the other worlds, the most important gateway that they guard is the one to the Feywild. This is, to the High Elves, home. The Feywild is home. It is where they came from, and if they could only get back there, they could be whole again. They could be what they truly were meant to be. They could have their connections restored. And the Moon Elves refuse them this. They're not allowed to pass through the gate to the Feywild. For this, there have been wars. For this, there have been centuries upon centuries of hatred between the two. The High Elves will never forgive them for forsaking them the opportunity to return to what they once were. So there you have it. And yeah, it's every time I tell it, it does get a little bit more fleshed out. So I'm sure the next time I tell it, I'll have even more detail. I do actually have more detail. So this whole campaign actually sprung up from that concept itself. It is also, by the way, why the High Elves hate the Jaina so much. Players don't know that yet, but they will. Because it was the Jainas, they see them as false gods, the Muses. It was Razesh, one of the gods of the Jaina, who wove the veil in the first place, who severed the High Elves from the Feywild. And for this, they have never forgiven them. At least those that remember. Those that know the stories. The High Elves are very long-lived, and thus have a very long cultural memory. This is why it's taken so very long to even get traction on progressive policies for the Jaina, because that hatred is culturally ingrained. But now, knowledge of that fault, or care about it, has faded over time. And they're starting to get a little bit of traction in the progressive policies. Anyway, do I hear any questions yet? Instead of me just ranting. I've had a few good questions. Thank you, Slev, for your interaction, for the questions you've had. I mean, I enjoy the rants too. If I didn't enjoy the rants, I wouldn't do them. It's my ADHD brain being satisfied talking about things that I love, you know? I can go on for hours. I just don't want to, you know, talk over and over and over about the same shit that you guys have heard. I want you to know new things. I want to make new things. Speaking of making new things, until I have another question, let's talk about the last festival on my list. You want to know about necromancy? Yeah, of course you do, you little bitch. What do you want to know about necromancy? Give me something more specific, that's broad. Is the school looked down upon? That depends on who you ask. So, let's start with the one that comes to my mind immediately, because we talked about this in game recently. Otherian. The High Elves. No, the School of Necromancy is not looked down on. Let us clarify that. The School of Necromancy. Now, let me fetch my book. Let me remind people what the School of Necromancy entails. Clone is a necromancy spell. Circle of Death, that one's obvious. So, you know, that can be looked down upon, but I'm trying to find some of the ones that people forget are necromancy. Well, Revivify is necromancy. What else do we have here? Legion Cantrip. False Life is necromancy. Eye Bite is necromancy. Alright. Anytime you resurrect one of your friends after a battle, it's necromancy. Is Cure Wounds necromancy? I gotta double check that. No, that's evocation. I mean, Slev, it's difficult to learn about the schools of magic because a lot of the time some of them just don't fucking make sense to me. Like, why the fuck are certain spells in this school? Gentle Repose is necromancy. So yeah, no, the school of necromancy. Yeah, Cure Wounds is Evo. Which also doesn't really make sense to me, because you have all these other ones that do, like, healing and resurrection and whatever. Don't worry about it. Evocation always, to me, made more sense as, like, an evocation of the elements. Gotta keep those bodies fresh. Yeah, so, no, the school of necromancy itself is not looked down upon. The creation of undead is, which is an entirely different story. But, again, it depends on where you go. If you go to Albion, for example, again, most places, the School of Necromancy is not looked down on, but ask anybody in the Order of Eternal Sleep, the order devoted to, what is it? Sorry, the order devoted to Wraith, Lord of Death. Ask anybody there. The School of Necromancy is absolutely detested. We had, in my home game, a bard, and we had a paladin of Wraith. So the Paladin of Wraith was obviously highly against necromancy. Her in particular, I mean, like, out of every fucking paladin in the Order of Venice, she was very against necromancy because, in her youth, Ilana was captured by a very powerful necromancer named Kosechi. She and several friends were taken from her village and used in experimentations. She was eventually rescued, and when she joined the Order of Eternal Sleep, and she spent her life into her 50s seeking and hunting down Kosechi, faced him down, and eventually killed the Lich, and lost all of her best friends in the process, except for one who saved her life and lost his eyes in the process. She lost her hand. Her whole story was that she had retired, and she was coming out of retirement because she couldn't stand retirement. She was like 65 in the campaign. But she fucking loathed necromancy. She made it very clear to the party. She was like, if I die, bury me. No revivify, nothing. You will not touch my body. Yeah. So she was very adamant, but most of the Order of Eternal Sleep are very against necromancy. I can tell you exactly why the resurrection of bodies is looked down upon, actually, because I had these questions on Reddit. on one of my posts. Let me see if I can find all of my answers. Da, 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 da. Here we go. I was asked at one point, why does the god of death despise the undead? Because this came up. And I actually went into quite a bit of detail on this. It was a bit of a sleepy rant, so some of it may not make sense or seem very kind of confusing, but when you get into religion like this, and the lines between life and death, it can get really confusing. So, the god of death, Wraith, lords over the afterlife and all that it represents. He is the god of eternal sleep, the lord of the last rest, guardian of the 10th gate, who holds domain over all souls. He is the inescapable and the inevitable, the final end. All creatures must one day face his judgment. As such, anything that subverts his divine mandate spits in his face. It is an affront to his domain and law, but that doesn't explain much other than the flowery language of the subject, so let's get into the details. The easiest answer about why he hates the undead is for the intelligent undead, the liches and ghouls to which souls are returned. This is obviously a theft of that which belongs to Wraith. More than that, it is a breaking of the sacred law to which all spirits are bound, that all things must end. It is a breaking of the cycle that keeps the world spinning, a shift in the motion of the world from change towards stagnation, which is another interesting topic I can get into. But there are more complicated and less cut and dry situations than this. Most often, undead are little more than bodies. A raised zombie or skeleton or flesh golem is little more than a construct empowered with energy to puppeteer it. However, these still require bodies of the deceased in order to exist. But why should the Lord of Death care if it is the souls alone to which he lays claim? Here's where it gets interesting. To answer that, we must ask, what truly is in a soul? What makes it? Slev, tell me, what makes a soul? Since you're so interested in this topic. What is a soul? I'll wait. A collection of memories and lived experiences. I'll let that sit for a second before I move on. So, you will likely get different answers whoever you ask. Psycho, what do you think a soul is, if you're still listening? I just want to see your opinion. I'll continue on, but I want to see what you think. Oh, he's in a league game. Okay, no worries then. A soul cannot be contained in a box. There's no neat definition for a soul. And even though souls have in part been observed, at least in energy, or in the form of ghosts, their extent cannot truly be quantified in ways that you can understand. Is a soul immutable? Is it immortal? Where does it begin and where does it end? There's no simple answer nor a correct one, but the closest that we can get is through metaphor. Think then of the soul as a seed. Compare experience to its water, perception to its soil, emotion to its sun. It's a poor analogy, and it barely scrapes the surface, but it gives you the basic idea. A soul is shaped by the experience of the vessel to which it belongs. It is changed and grown by the way that vessel perceives the world, but most importantly, it is made more not by the emotions that it experiences, but by the perceptions and feelings of those who experience it. Let that sink in. All of these things are attached inextricably to the soul, even when it is separated from the holy vessel of its body. The joys they gave to their family, the hearts that they have broken, the pain that they have caused, the changes that they have wrought upon others, the grief left behind when they depart, all of this becomes a part of the spirit, shaping it sometimes in ways that can be observed, other times in ways that could never be perceived. So let me ask, what happens when this holy vessel to which it is tied begins to create new experiences? What happens when it rises and begins to taint or darken the perceptions of those that once knew it? Though the soul may not exist within the body anymore, what the body represents is equally a part of what the soul is. When that occurs, for example, should the body in its decrepit state be perceived by one who once loved it for what it was? How would that poison their love, sour their grief, change acceptance to anger, and how would all of these then corrupt the soul and the idea of it? And how then could Wraith abide the vandalism of that to which he lays claim? Setting aside the technical implications and the effects upon the soul, undeath is also a disruption of all that Wraith himself represents. If death is no longer the end, if the faith in him ends, then what becomes of him? How would he wither if he was no longer needed? In the end, gods are nothing without faith. It is their food, their blood, their bodies. Belief in them shapes them. And if his law falters, so too does the faith creatures hold in him. Even more, what other laws of nature might be destroyed on the path to this end? If, after all, death is no longer an end for creatures, if death itself can be broken, that final law to which all things are bound, then is there any law that is truly binding? So that's my answer on necromancy. You can think that he's greedy all you want, you evil little necromancer. So I'll just bring you into a one-shot sometime. You can play a necromancer that the players get to slay. Okay, but aren't you? You're stealing bodies. So, more than that, by the way, I'll also touch back. I mentioned before, what is it? A breaking of the cycle that keeps the world spinning, a shift in the motion of the world from change towards stagnation. This is equally important. Liberating the soil of unwanted refuse. Shut up, you necromancer bastard. I think, Slev, you'll remember in particular when I talked about magic, two of the main energies on the top and the bottom of the chart, rather than positive and negative energy, the way that mine is set up is energy and stasis. This is a balance of the world. Energy, stasis. Chaos, order. Chaos is motion. Chaos is change, right? Order is sameness. So you could define order, pure order, as stagnation. Nothing changes. And nothing keeps changing forever. That is pure order. Pure chaos is everything is changing so fast that nothing can remain whole. Nothing can remain the same for long enough for anything meaningful. Everything breaks apart into nothing. You could examine those concepts through the ideas of, like, the two main concepts of how the universe will end. I mean, of course, now we have proof towards the death of the universe, but like, one of the original ideas was the universe keeps expanding and expanding and rips itself apart at the seams as everything breaks down into components, pure entropy. And then stagnation would be literally energy dissipates from the universe until everything is order. Nothing keeps happening forever. The cycle of death being broken represents a massive step, a massive leap in the energy of order. Crystal, being the etheric representation of it, it represents a big leap towards stagnation, because once you get rid of death, and you begin filling the world with undeath, life is of course what's sacrificed for that. If you have a world full of undead, then nobody's being born and nobody's dying, things are staying the same. That is a huge amount of stagnant energy. It throws the balance off in the world massively, in the cosmos. In that respect, though, honestly, that's not Wraith's concern. Wraith doesn't deal with the energies of the cosmos. That is the problem of Mechanus, which, being the divine plane of order, though it is the divine plane of order, is not devoted to turning the universe to pure order. They're determined to ensure the balance of all energies. Once they wanted pure order, and there may still be some sects that do, but it's their duty to observe that, and if the balance is being disrupted in between those energies, they step in. I love those fun little details. Well, anyway, we are at, what is it, 18 minutes until the stream is over. So, do I have any other questions? About to get ready for work? Thanks, Psycho. I love writing shit like this. One of my favorite things to do with my world in podcast form. Yeah, I mean, so I already upload all of these. I upload all of these videos to YouTube, so anybody that misses the streams is welcome to watch them there, even though the VODs go down off Twitch within 14 days. If you're not already subscribed to my YouTube, subscribe. I've given up on making money off of it. I don't think that that's going to be a viable thing for a long time, especially because I really don't have the energy to do. I was originally intending to do, and I do intend to get back to, doing board game reviews on there, but the videos are significantly more effort for zero reward at the moment. So I've kind of put them on hiatus until I can get the energy back up to do those. YouTube is tough. YouTube is so hostile to creators. I fucking hate YouTube. We need an alternative to YouTube. Can we crowdfund an alternative to YouTube already? Maybe I should do that. Maybe I should start a Kickstarter for crowdfunding a video hosting site. MySpace video. Oh god. Alright, well, still have about 15 minutes, so the last thing I'm gonna do is we'll close out the original topic of this video before we started talking about other things with a discussion of, or rather, with a quick talk about the last festival, the most recent one that I've created, called Rapi. Save the best for last. This festival is probably the most fleshed out of them all, and the reason why is because my players are currently in Ostadosh, the village of the Prikwala tribe, the Jaina, the Beastkin tribe, in the archipelago on the Salican continent. And they're experiencing the festival. So let's talk about it. The Festival of Rapi covers 7 days, starting on the 32nd of Sadwin through the 6th of Dulaman. It is known as the Festival of Light and Color, and it's only celebrated in certain tribes of the Jaina. Most of the time it's observed in the Sayanam, in the Prikwala, in the Ushad, and in the Domaihur, which are the 4 that are most northwestern of the continent, and the ones that take inspiration from South Asian cultures. In part, Rapi is a harvest festival, as this is the time of the year when the rich spices of the Salic wood are at their most abundant and are collected by the tribes. Most of the worship for the harvest has fallen out of the festival, though, as the nomadic nature of the tribes prevents them from cultivating much land. However, the abundant presence of spices and flowers remains a part of the festival, as does the use of feasts as celebration. Feasts are a very important part of the culture. One of the fantastic things that my players have experienced during this festival is the fact that amid the Purikwala and several of the tribes, really, there isn't within the tribe like an economic structure. They barter for goods, they trade goods and services rather than trading in coin. Food, though, especially in the Prikwala, food is never bought or sold. It is not traded for. They will trade spices to foreigners, but all guests of the tribe and members of the tribe are fed, no questions asked. Food is given freely. It's seen as just a rite of life, really. And this is massive in the festival, because in the festival, with all the spices coming in from the harvest, the variety of food explodes in the tribes. And people try and make new dishes. They prepare classic dishes. There is such variety. I can get into that in a minute. Let's get back to the festival. So, during the festival, thousands of lamps and candles are lit and hung in tents, homes, trees, depending on where you're from. In Ostadosh, it is homes, because they actually do have a settlement that is roughly built. But for, like, the Domaihur and the Ushad being significantly more nomadic, they'll hang them among the trees, for example. They're placed around the streets at night, if there are streets. These lamps and lanterns, which come in a multitude of colors, if you're going for aesthetic, you can think of like Moroccan lamps, all the different colors of glass, lots of twisting ironwork. These lanterns represent the triumph of light over darkness in a metaphorical sense. It is meant to represent the destruction of ignorance through knowledge. More literally, though, they represent the light of the stars, which Razesh called down from the heavens and spun into a spear with which she slew the demon of ignorance, Masud Goth. The length of the festival, 7 days, comes from this old legend which says that upon his defeat, Masud Goth was pinned to a mountainside by the spear and took 7 days and nights to die. The light of the spear shone all these days, and the celebration and music of the people drowned his voice that they could no longer hear his dying lies. During the day, the trees, the paths, and the buildings, if any, are covered in brightly colored rangoli, which if you don't know what those are, look up rangoli. They are beautiful pieces of art that are very common in Indian festivals, kind of like flower motif mandalas of multitudes of color. They're painted from bright, washable pigments made of the abundant fall flowers and rich clays of the continent. Some rangoli are even made of the flowers themselves, laid out upon the ground in patterns and lit with lamps at night. During the day, the people drape themselves in their finest clothes and participate heavily in feasting and dancing, celebrating the prosperity of the year and inviting more for the year following. Worship is also given to Minesh, as the goddess of inspiration, art, and higher thought among the Jaina. The people will toss petals of flowers into the air, filling it with color and beauty all day long for the days of the festival. On the final day, powdered spices and pigments are brought out, and the most fervent day of the festival begins. Colors and herbs are smeared throughout the skin and fur of friends and family, often in joyous, raucous play fights, turning the entire tribe into an artwork of scents and colors. Come evening, when the light wanes, songs are lifted in praise, inviting Minesh into the lives of the people to bring inspiration and joy throughout the colder months. After this, a final feast is presented, and in certain tribes, a hallucinogenic drink known as sungaraj is offered to those who want it, which usually results in a wakeful and inspired night full of art and creation. And potentially lots of lovemaking. Traditionally, for a day following the festival, a huge ceremonial lantern is that has been fashioned over the previous weeks by artisans of the tribe will remain lit throughout the day and night as a final warding against darkness and ignorance. So yeah, celebration of both those two goddesses. The concept of the light and color and like bringing in the goddess Minesh is the transition from ignorance into knowledge and inspiration. Fun fact for this one, the culture of the Purikwala tribe in particular is heavily based on the Indian subcontinent. So I took inspiration from the actual Festival of Light, Diwali, which is an actual Indian festival, and a little bit of inspiration from their Festival of Color as well, mostly in the events that occur. But this is where the idea of light and dark as a symbol of ignorance and knowledge came from, actually. Diwali as the Festival of Light, the lights that are lit are meant to represent the same thing. For mine, I constructed the idea of Rajesh slaying Masud Gath. I think I did a bunch of research. I can't recall off the top of my head, though, if there is a similar story in the lore surrounding Diwali. But yeah, there you have that. That's probably my most fleshed out festival so far. Had a lot of fun creating that, and I had a ton of fun running it yesterday, the first day of the festival anyway, with my players who did a bunch of dancing. They did a cooking contest, an eating contest that was... They had to make their way through progressively spicier dishes. It was so much fun. Day of the Dead, yes. Day of the Dead is going to be an important thing in my world. As I mentioned... No, they're not going to raise their ancestors, Slev. Fuck you. Fight me. However, I am, at least in some culture, one culture of the world, I want to incorporate into the Festival of the Dead. So there's this concept in Samhain the pagan Day of the Dead, now Halloween, that hospitality is to be strictly observed. Some people will set a place at their table and leave it, and if a guest arrives and asks for like a place to stay or needs to be fed, then you will give them a place in your home and a seat at your table. You are not ever supposed to turn away a stranger during Samhain because they believe this is the time when the horned god is out and about, and any person who comes to you seeking aid could be the horned god in disguise, and to turn him away is to invite his wrath. Oh, the Danish thing with the horse skull, yeah. I need to look into that. Different cultures are going to have their different ways. I need to start, like, splitting up the festivals into, like, which culture. But I kind of want to maintain that concept with the idea of you always, like, invite a stranger into your home because you never know when they could be the spirit of your ancestor. Or perhaps... maybe I should look at a culture... I think there needs to be a culture in my world that believes in reincarnation. I think I might have that be a part of the Sultanate. That would be good. And, you know, that could really filter in that concept with the Day of the Dead of, you know, you always give a place in your home and a seat at your table to a stranger because you never know when they are the spirit of your ancestor reincarnated. So that should be interesting. Just a fun concept to start with. All right. So we are running right up. We're at 8:56 now, my time. I think that we're going to start closing the stream off unless I have any last minute questions. All right. Sweet. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Really glad to have you guys tune in and listen to me speak, listen to me rant about all this stuff. I love coming back for the next stream. Yeah. I'm gonna take like an hour, maybe two, just as a break, and then I think that I'm gonna run a Final Fantasy XIV stream. Just gonna take some time to relax and smooch chi. But thanks everybody for tuning in. Really appreciate you coming to listen to me rant about my world. Love my world. Love talking about it. If you guys are catching this on the VOD or on my YouTube, make sure that you try and tune in the future live because your questions help spark my inspiration. I love hearing from you guys. I do these streams every other Sunday, 7 p.m. CDT. The off Sundays are my homebrew helper streams where I do community homebrew creation. You bring me your ideas, anything, even just a name, and I will make a homebrew item, spell, monster, whatever you want from that. So catch me next weekend, 7 p.m. CDT for that. If you're not already following, give me a follow. During the week I do monsters. During the week I do all kinds of gaming streams, Pokemon, all that shit. If you enjoy these streams, I'm still working my way up in terms of income. If you don't want to do a subscription, I also have my Patreon up. The lowest tier is just for general support. $1 goes straight to me. For $3 a month, you get access to special homebrew content that I release through there. I haven't put anything out in the last month because I don't really have any subscribers, but as soon as I see subscribers on there, I'm going to be doing things very regularly, at least weekly. Yeah. I think that's everything. Patreon.com/thegrinninggamer. That's what I forgot. Anyway, I will see you guys later in an hour for my Final Fantasy XIV stream. Love you guys. Have an excellent evening.